humans, my persons. And so what was your week like, Diane? Did you do anything productive?
I did. I flew and I spent one night in, where was I? I don't remember. Oh, Redmond, Oregon. And then we flew some more, and I spent the next night in Arcata, California, which is the airport is actually Humboldt County. And what was that?
Sorry. Yeah, that was the part I was supposed to do just before we started this.
Start recording, yeah.
And so that then I could forget to record it when we start up again.
We started, okay.
So I'm spring loaded. So
there you go.
Pardon the interruption.
Thanks for your patience.
So one night was in Redmond, Oregon, and the next night we were in Arcata, Eureka, California, which is right on the coast. And it was cold. It was very nice, but it was a little cold.
Yeah.
So I had a nice 3-day trip. Wonderful flight attendant. The crew was great. The FO was one of the FOs was finishing up his IOE, and that was fun. So yeah.
Into IOE for those of you. So I decided we'd start the thing a little bit less formally here, because this is the way we fly airplanes. You get together and you hang around, and the first leg, nobody knows anybody that all that well, so it's kind of formal and all that. And then pretty soon you lighten up, and this is what happens in between while we're waiting for you to come down and board. This is what goes on. And we've got our guest tonight, Laura Fralka. Nice to have you on here. You can't tell any of your story because that'll spoil the whole plans for the show. But no, anyway, Laura's our special guest here. And then Eric's trying to figure out how he can get on Facebook and monitor it so we can get your questions again. All right. So we're kind of killing time for that too. How's it going there, Eric?
Good, but I determined when I had a show with Dieter in it instead of Laura that was not live this week. So,
right.
How do you do it, Diane?
I went on Facebook and then just went that way. And so Jim says hi. Susan McGlashier say hi, friends. Don Calvert as well. So
I'm starting to think that Jim doesn't have a life, because
I wonder about that
all this time. So I don't know whether to be enthused about him watching every week or to feel sorry for him.
Hi, Jim.
So Jim, hey Jim, no, I'm just kidding.
Got it now.
When you came over and bought me dinner, I can't believe, and you're one of the nicest guys I've ever met. So take that.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay, I got it now.
All right. So cool. So let's go into the evening. Let me start the recording. Ta-da-da-da.
Ron, what was it? He's talking about how we get to the cockpit because we don't know the person in a big airline. At the smaller airlines, you kind of do. Then it's like high school, you sort of know them, but the bigger airlines, you don't know anybody. So you always have show and tell. And my first officer that was the funniest time we sat down. Hi, what's your name? What do you do? He said, hi, my name is First Officer X, and I buy houses for women, and then I move on. And I mean, I just spat up water all over the release. And he was that funny the whole time. He made my ribs hurt.
You may have to translate that, Eric.
Yes.
If everybody doesn't understand that, what he means is he got married and then he would get divorced and lose the house. And then he would repeat cycle the process so that he kept getting married, buying houses and moving on.
See, that's what happens with you guys in mainline. With us, we know, we pretty much, and I've been flying for now 2.5 years. And I know a whole lot of people. So it's almost never that I get on a plane and I don't know at least one of the other crew members, if not all of them. So
yeah, my time at Frontier, we had about 600, 700 pilots. It's very similar. You get to see them even if you never fly with them. So
yeah, you see them in the jet bridge, you see them in the crew lounge. Yeah, wandering aimlessly in the airport. Anyway, so that's enough of that. Here.
So welcome everybody. This is Fearless Flight Live. I'm Captain Ron, and we're here as we are every Tuesday night to talk to anybody who will listen to us, like Jim, and talk about people who have issues with fear flying or people who just like to talk about airplanes. Doesn't matter. And you may know somebody who has issues with fear flying. Been doing this I'm in my 35th year now, and wow, where did the time go? The only place I can see it is in my face in the morning when I shave. So And tonight I want to make a shout out for joining our Birds of a Feather group. It's growing nicely. We reached critical mass, a little while ago, where we have plenty of people up there going in and out of the comments and leaving hints and looking for support. So if you're not a member, please consider joining that. I'm going to talk about the 2 classes that we're on. These are going to be prototype classes for next year. In that we used to, the 201 and the 301 series, where we actually have a class where we get people ready to fly, and then we go fly with them. And you've been listening to me talk about the one in LA coming up. I'm going to talk a little bit more about the one in Phoenix, and we're starting to get a head count for Phoenix, and it looks like we might have enough people to do it in Phoenix. So that'll be the last class here. But then next year we fully intend to start doing it in other areas around the country. So speaking of success, Laura, that's why you're here. And you were so generous in giving me feedback when you went to fly and everything. So how long has it been since you've had issues with fear flying?
Yeah, so it hasn't been long. I first had so I've always been claustrophobic. Let's start there.
Okay.
But it's never stemmed to a plane, really, because I felt like in a plane I've had enough space to where I feel not trapped. But I had a bad experience in June on a flight, and I had a full-on panic attack. It was a whole scene, and that was the flight to Chicago. I had a panic attack equal size on the way back, and then I had another 2 flights. But it just started in June of this year. So
what was it like? Was it, I mean, you literally just got on unsuspecting on the airplane, and then it took over you, or how did it come on?
So what happened was I was sitting with I was supposed to be with my husband, but we got separated. I was on the very last seat of the plane, and he was like up in the front, and it was particularly stressful time. I had a couple back-to-back family deaths, and I had like stress at work. So I think that was really triggering, but
Sure.
What caused the actual panic attack on the plane, I was already in kind of a weird place, it was very turbulent, and I was separate from my husband.
Yeah. And all of a sudden you had all the perfect ingredients, and there you were.
Oh yeah. Yes.
Yeah.
I just saw red. It was not good.
So you obviously completed the flight, because no point in getting off at 35,000 feet. And then, and was it for a family event or something that you were going to visit, or what was the occasion?
We were going to Chicago for a wedding.
Okay.
But so that was on the way there. So we were there for a week before we had to fly home. But like during the flight home, I was totally, during the trip, I was totally like anticipating the flight, and I was super nervous about it.
Yeah. And so then you got home, and you came to the class, and you had not been to the class before, right? You came to the class here in Phoenix, I think, you and Ben.
Yeah. I did.
And
I apologize if you can hear my dogs barking.
Yeah.
My husband's getting home. He'll stop in a second.
All right. It's Eric wasn't moving his lips, so I know it wasn't his ventriloquism.
Yeah. I was going to blame it on Rocco, but I didn't want you to go look.
And my cats don't sound like that. So
yeah. So then we started talking when you came to class. You did a couple of coaching sessions. So tell everybody, what did you do and how did it work out?
So I did about 4 sessions with you, 4 calls, and I went to one of your classes at Phoenix Sky Harbor. And I think that it was, I'm so sorry about the dogs, but I think that it was, why it ended up working out was because I really, what helped me with the whole thing was that you, I always thought it was claustrophobia that was the main issue, but sure. I learned from you that a lot of what my anxiety was stemming from with the plane was actually the mechanic, like not the mechanics of the plane, but like not understanding what's going on and what's normal. Right. So when you explained to me the different parts of like the takeoff, land, takeoff, landing, and everything in between. It really helped keep my mind at ease with that part, and then the claustrophobia part was more controlled at that point.
Right. So we'll make a training point of this. So the dogs in the background, think of that as your little voice, everybody. That's the
Sorry,
little voice. That's no, seriously. Think of that as the little voice, and think of, it's like, when you get it, I've heard, I haven't tried it, but hearing aids, the older hearing aids, they magnify all the frequency ranges, right? And so what people ended up doing, you'd think that it would be an improvement, but all it did, it took every bit of noise out there that we filter, that our brain normally filters for. It does it, and we can do dichotomous listening. Like, we can still listen to you even though the dogs are barking in the background, right?
Right.
But that's what it's like for people who have a fear of flying, right? Is you got this voice inside, and no matter how hard you try, it won't shut up. So maybe the dogs were divinely inspired tonight.
Oh my gosh.
They're
And
helping.
I can calm them down in 2 seconds if you want me to I can say something to
Sure,
them.
take a break.
Okay,
Take a break.
Give me
And
1
we'll-
second.
Yeah, Eric will entertain us with a story.
Yeah,
or
we have
something.
this, Tracy Solis sent in a comment, and she's
Okay.
camping in
Yeah.
the Grand Canyon. She said she thinks she can hide from airplanes there better, which is kind of a big canyon to hide in, but nevertheless, there she
Yeah.
is. And she says, I learned today that it was a midair collision that prompted the start of the FAA. So I started looking at my phone real quickly on when it went.
1956, it was United and TWA, and they had a practice in those days of, there was no radar control, no radar and no air traffic control. So the airlines going to and from LA from the east would come over the Grand Canyon, and they would say, hey, Center, we would like to stop and take a Grand Canyon tour.
I was going to tell you, do you think you should tell Tracy where this happened? Because I know you're getting ready to do it right now.
She's probably already Googled it. That's why she brought it up.
Exactly.
I'm sure she brought it up that way. Yeah.
And that's a great example of how, when things happen, we call it necessary fallibility. We don't want them to happen, and particularly when it's airplane crashes. But if you do your homework and you get what you need to do out of that, you find out other things. And you've probably heard me say, Sully landing in the Hudson, 5 items out of 35 were directly related to Sully's accident there, or incident. 30 of them were unrelated in the sense that they affected other airline operations or other parts of the airline operations, stuff like that. So that is, as Eric said there, that is what started the radar air traffic control. And from that point on, you're under radar. Not only are you being tracked, but you're under radar control, and virtually everywhere in the United States now. So anyway.
So I think you're good, Tracy. Or if you really want to be safe, maybe pick a different canyon next time for camping. I'm just throwing that out there.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, when I went did a river trip, and we actually went up that little part, and it's way up on top of the mesa there. So, well, welcome back. Well,
Yeah, I'm so sorry. My friend came over too, and my dogs haven't met my friend yet, so they didn't trust her. I just had to show that that's my friend, and now they're good. Everyone's good. Yeah.
And check your silverware after your friends leave.
Oh yeah. No, she's trustworthy.
I know. Yeah. So anyway, so here we are. You came to the class. We did some coaching and stuff like that. And then when you got ready to go, you tell people what it was like. Were you completely anxiety free? And I touched your forehead, and you were healed. I don't think so.
So let me back up. So I've had 2 flights since we started working together. The first one was to New York, which I was panicking about because that's a 4.5-hour flight from Phoenix.
Right.
So I was just so nervous about that flight. That's why I reached out to you because I knew that was coming up. So when we started working together, I was feeling confident, but also I had that doubt in my head. So when I got to the airport, what I did was I started listening to the harmonizer, which I bought from your course, which helps me a lot because I kind of memorized it at this point to where I feel like it helped me know that time was passing. So once I got over that initial, like, sitting on the plane, you do the first harmonizer. At that point, then I knew I was okay.
Yeah.
And it really just calmed me down so much. And then I was able to distract myself. And then when anything came up, like turbulence wise, I felt prepared for it. But even to back that up even more, Captain Ron gave me so many amazing, like, tips that helped me significantly. Before, I was always like the flyer that would show up like 4 minutes before we were boarding, and that was always my MO. But Captain Ron was telling me that you really should come to the airport like prepared and ready. So I gave myself that time, which really, like, that whole piece of just like, am I going to make the flight? That anxiety wasn't there. So I got to the airport earlier, and then I actually spoke to the captain. The captains were so nice. The crew was so nice to me, which really just put me at ease. And the captains told me that, it's going to be a smooth flight, but there might be some turbulence at 90 minutes in. So when it did happen, I wasn't surprised at all, or I didn't think anything was going wrong. I didn't think plane was going down or anything. And I was able to just go through it. So that first flight to New York was really, really positive. There was a little bit of hiccups to where I was like, wasn't 100% at ease, but it was a huge improvement from the flight earlier.
Cool. And this is you sent me this after I think you were after you landed, or you were in the flight and on your way to New York for the first time.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
I was so proud of myself in this picture.
And you deserve to be. It was great. And the message was so cool.
Yep.
And then this one was cute. This is a text that Laura sent me. And there was so what's the story behind this picture?
So in our sessions, and then when I took that class in person, you had said that, multiple exposure to your fear is how you're going to get over it. So I pivoted that to my husband and to my girlfriends. I said, hey, you guys, I really need to take a flight soon. Are you guys in for a girls' trip? So I convinced them on last Monday to take a flight with me to Seattle on Friday of that week. And that's us on the plane headed to Seattle.
And that's another long trip too. So that's a good thing. Yeah. And because some people they think that well, I could do a short trip, but I can't do a long trip, and you can. It's all what happens to your mind. So, but you were a joy to work with, and you can tell. I mean, I can tell when I'm with people that you're aggressively focused on, I'm going to make this real. And I think the other thing that's really a credit to you is the fact that you had that bad experience in June, and you went right out and tried to do something about it. Because the longer you sit on it, the harder it is to the work that it gets for people. So, and this is when you got back from Seattle, I'm assuming, and you had a blast of a trip. You don't have to tell us what you did, just in case. We didn't see you in the newspaper, so we'll think it's probably
right.
There.
No crazy girl trying to get off the plane in the middle of the trip. Yep.
Yeah.
Not me.
And in both texts you mentioned that you didn't have a panic attack, which was really, really a major accomplishment for you. So
and you should pat yourself on the back for jumping it like that. We have classes all the time with people that had an incident and they haven't been on the airplane for 10 or 15 or 20 years, and it's 10 or 15 or 20 years worse by the time they have to start digging out.
Exactly.
Yeah. And I'm in kind of the heart of all my friends are getting married and everybody's doing destination weddings and everything. So that was kind of the catalyst to jumping on it right away, making sure that I don't miss out on any of those fun experiences.
Yeah.
And that's wonderful. That really is.
Well, if you have any questions for Laura, just put them in there. We got Eric and Diane both monitoring the chat there. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to talk a little bit about the class that's coming up in Phoenix. I put in I'll hold that till the end there. So we are geared to start up on Thursday night. the first 201 online special edition class. And what that means is we're going to have 4 continuous Thursdays or consecutive Thursdays where we're going to have an hour and a half webinar. And then on October 30th, people that are enrolled in the class, we've already got our tickets. We're going from Orange County. So I'm going to fly out to Orange County on the Friday before, the 29th. And we're going to meet up at the Orange County Airport on the morning of October 30th. And we're going to go to Sacramento and back. And when we get done, we're going to have about another 20 people that are going to be fearless flyers, and really looking forward to it. And I've been doing some interviews just to kind of give people an idea, get to know them a little bit better beforehand. And I'm impressed with the number of people. One question I ask them is, what was your biggest reservation about signing up for the flight? And they said both the positive and the negative was it was the flight that scared them, and the flight was the reason that they wanted to do it, because they wanted it to lead to something. And that's something I've kind of suspected for a long time. And I know when we have classes, when we're going to go fly, we usually don't have any trouble finding people to fill them with us there. So we're going to begin the module for the California class begins this Thursday. But if we get enough interest for this Phoenix class, we're going to begin that on November 11th, which is another Thursday. Module 1 will begin. These are the 4 modules. We talk about the psychology of the fear flying, the basics of flight, the coping strategies and tools and strategies. And then we do a mock flight, which is interesting, especially when we do it virtually like this. Eric and I have a lot of fun doing this, and we give you some good insights as to what it's like when you're actually flying. The modules, as I said, will be November 11th, November 18th. It will skip the week of Thanksgiving, and then we'll come back December 2nd and then December 9th with the bonus mock-up flight. And then we will fly on December 11th. I had that somewhere probably at the beginning. It's basically 6 hours of classroom with me and the guests usually that help me, Eric and Diane, when they can make it. We're going to talk about the fearless flight method that we use and what I use whenever I coach people, like I did with Laura there. And we're going to give you everything you need to make a successful flight. I mean, gosh, Laura did it in about 4 hours. So you guys, 6 hours is overkill. Plus the other time that we'll spend talking, the briefings that we're going to have when I get to Orange County before we fly that day. It's just a really fun experience. And I want to warn you, don't sign up unless you want to fly, because you're going to end up on an airplane and you'll never regret it.
We won't force you, but what we have seen in the past, people sign up to take classes but not fly. And when they've gone all through with the classes and bonded with the people that are flying, and we're going off to the airport to get on, they have big regrets that they're not getting on the airplanes. That's what Ron means. Don't do that.
And they've actually gone to the airport to be a kind of a sending off committee. And some of them even came back when we got back just to celebrate with them. So what Eric says is really true. People, one of the biggest things that happens is people regret that they didn't sign up to fly when we get done talking about it. And this one's going to be even more so, because we're going to have a longer time to get to know each other other than just the morning like we would have in the past. Here's the after one of the classes that there's a Southwest captain. We usually get some great crews, and some of them really participate with us. And you'll have us there. Diane's going to be with us. Eric's going to be with us, and I got a couple of returning graduates that are going to also go with us. So we're going to have plenty of people to coach you through it. We do a little post-flight afterwards, which is just nothing but a blast. And then we wrap it up with a certificate for everybody of completion.
And we'll be done one day before Halloween, so it'll be even less scary.
There you go. Now however, this is for the Phoenix class, and I'll tell you how to make your interest known here at the end. But this is for Phoenix. And so the flight is going to be on the 11th of December. We're going to go from Phoenix to Ontario. And this is the other advantage of doing it this way is you get your tickets early. Because one of the things that happens to some people is they wait until the day before the flight, and then they go in there and the ticket prices are all the way out of sight. You can see, let me move my head over there. You can see, so here's a ticket. I already got my tickets here lined up here. So $67 coming back, and it was 67 going up, I think. If I do the anytime, which means I can get a full refund, it's 115, but it's all headed to this up in the 150 range, which isn't as much for a short flight, but you get a longer flight and it can get really expensive. So you want to do that, because if you wait till the last day, that old computer guy sitting at Southwest says, he's buying this at the last minute. That must mean he's got to fly.
Really
And so
have-
you'll get an expensive ticket. So, yeah. We were looking for a minimum of 10 students. I got a couple of questionnaires back today, so we may be to that point here. And you can bring a coach and companion, and those weren't included in my minimum. So they would be in addition to the 10 minimum there. But I was looking for 10 there, and we're up over 25, I think, for Los Angeles already. So, and so here's the price is $497 if you're going to take the class. It does not include the airfare, unfortunately. And then the tuition, I've also extended. I've had people contact me from all over the country that said, hey, can I take this even though I can't fly? And I said, sure. So I'm offering them the class at $397. And then I will come out with an early bird special once I'm committed to holding the class, which should be within a week at the longest. And I'll announce that date. And we're going to take another $100 off each one of them. So the early bird special will be $397 for those flying and $297 for those not flying. And then we charge $97 just for the companions, just to coordinate that for everybody else. Again, those are the modules that we're going to be looking at. And again, the dates: November 11th, November 18th, Thursday nights, December 2nd, the week after Thanksgiving, and then December 9th, which is just 2 days before the 11th, when we'll fly, and we'll be going from Phoenix to Ontario and back. I'm going to send out a copy of this evening's show, at least the presentation here, and I'll have in there the slides in there so you can look at those, and then I'll have a questionnaire in there. And that's what it means when I say the form here. So there'll be a questionnaire in there. So if you're interested in participating in the class, all you have to do is fill out the questionnaire. It'll come directly to me, and that gives me enough information to register, and then I'll be able to contact you personally to make sure that you're in for the class, and then I'll send you a separate invoice via PayPal, which allows you to pay through all the normal rates. And if you need installments, there's even a question there that says, hey, can you spread out the cost for me? We can do that as well. All right. So when you get the form, there's an embedded link in there to complete the enrollment form questionnaire, and I will get that out to you. I'll get this all out probably tomorrow. And so I just wanted to go over this, and there's still time if any of you live in the LA area or will be in the LA area and think you might want to participate with us on the 30th. There's still time to do that, because the class starts on Thursday night, and they're going to be recorded, so you could probably even miss the first week. But if you think you might be interested in that, I'll include in there a link. Actually, I think I put in a link in the chat box there, if you guys can check on me for that. Yeah. It's a big long link, and that's the enrollment form for the Los Angeles class, not the Phoenix class. Okay, so don't get confused. So
Ron, we've got a couple questions.
Okay.
They're both from Susan Maglaccio.
Yep.
Susan asks, Laura, did it bother you more being in the back of the plane? I don't get the sense that she's asking about the fact that you and your husband had to sit in different places. She was more concerned about your sitting in the very back of the plane. How did that feel?
Yeah. So it's funny because my husband originally chose 2 seats in the back of the plane for us because he thought that was going to be the best thing for my claustrophobia, because I could have a full view of the plane.
Uh-huh.
But I actually think sitting at the back of the plane might have been more difficult for me because I felt more turbulence there.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I do think sitting at the back of the plane for that particular time, again, it was a very stressful point in my life. But I do think that time affected me, but I was the very last seat on the entire plane.
Yeah. The other question has to do with a different event that happened just a few days ago, and Ron, we had talked about it earlier. I don't know whether or not you want to address that now.
Sure.
Okay. Susan again asked about, actually it was, I take that back, it was Marcia talking about the engine fire. We talked about this, the three of us, before we came on. I saw it first on Facebook, on one of my Facebook pages with a company that I work for. And there were two videos. One was of from the interior of the aircraft, a passenger was taking of the engine fire. Apparently it was a Spirit Airlines and they were taking off from Atlantic City. They had not even gotten off the ground. They were just going down the runway and had a bird strike. And you guys were talking about, it must have been a big bird or whatever. Anyway, it was a bird strike and the right engine caught on fire. That video follows that through to the point where the engine fire goes out, because you guys know how to make that happen. And then the other video was, which hurt my soul because I'm a flight attendant, was the minor chaos that was taking place in the interior part of the aircraft of all the passengers. Of course, we're always telling people, if in case of emergency, leave everything. You just have to leave everything. And you have to listen to the crew instructions, neither of which happened. Everybody stood up. The flight attendants were telling everybody to sit down, that the fire was going to be under control, to leave everything. They were taking everything out of the overhead bins. It was just, it was a difficult thing for me. And from some of the comments that I saw on the Facebook page, for us to witness.
Yeah,
So,
and I assume you're talking.
I'm going to take it from there as far as the fire goes. There was never it never really seemed that it was
right. And so during the emergency, so they put everybody out on over the slides and stuff.
Yes,
is what you're saying. Yeah.
And by the time the fire was out, I mean, the fire trucks were coming. The fire was out. And there was a right engine, so they blew the slides on the left side of the plane, obviously, away from the engine fire, and people were going down the slides with handbags and backpacks, and they were wandering all over once they had gotten down the slides. It was disappointing to watch.
But Diane's pointing out, and I love it when you guys are taking care of each other. And Susan said, didn't something happen with birds this week? Which made me think of a zillion smart mouth answers. But Marcia said, yes, an engine fire. But they rejected the takeoff fine. They put out the engine fire. The passengers evacuated. And what Diane's talking about is the problem with taking your stuff is either the person behind you, the person in front of you with those heavy bags. Those slides are steep and they're fast. When you go down them in training, you're going down those things like a bullet. And if you're carrying your bag or the other bag and you cream the person in front of that with a bag, there are generally people hurt during an evacuation, not because of what's going on in the airplane, but because of getting out of it. And if you're taking heavy bags down the slide, either you're going to get hurt or you'll hurt somebody else with it. And that's what you're talking about.
There's something else too that people don't think about as much as, or some of them, they don't think about it as much as we do. In this particular instance, I don't want to say it was an emergency, obviously, but it was not as time critical as some situations. The fire was out. They were on the ground. They blew the slides. It was relatively organized and relatively non-emergent. When people start getting things out of the overhead bins and from underneath the seat in front of them, they drop things. They misplace them. Things wind up in the aisle. And when things wind up in the aisle, people in back of you can't get out, or people in front of you can't get out. They're tripping over the bags. We are required to be able to evacuate an aircraft in 90 seconds or less with one exit block. With one exit block that we don't know. When we go through training, we don't know which exit's going to be blocked. So we have to get everybody off the aircraft in 90 seconds. This instance, they had plenty of time. But if it had been a different level of emergency, then all of those people doing all of those things with all of the bags, it could have been very, very tragic. So
It'll be interesting to, we'll follow this, Eric, and see what the ultimate report says, because I wouldn't be surprised if somebody gets some criticism for evacuating, since the fact that they had already extinguished the fire, and I'm not criticizing anybody
Right.
because I wasn't there on the scene, but when that happens, because the last thing we want to do is dump you out on the ground
Right.
over the slides, because just
Yeah.
like Eric says, when you're sitting there, it's 15 feet off
It's a
of
long
your
ways.
yeah,
and you're
Yeah.
coming down. The first 10 feet of that slide is nearly vertical.
Yeah,
And
it
it's
is.
then when you get like a water slide and it scoots out there. So, and
know,
we
I-
have people that jump, take a big leap, like it's in the movies. You don't do that. You
No.
just step over and let your butt hit the thing
Yeah.
and go down. Yeah.
I did hear, I'd have to listen and watch that second video again, but
Yeah.
I do seem to recall hearing the captain say evacuate, evacuate, evacuate.
Yeah, he probably did.
Yeah,
Probably did.
which is of course our cue on that. But yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, when we had to practice going down the slide, I must admit I loved it. And there was several of us. I went down 6 or 7 times, and finally the instructor said, "Okay, that's enough. You've got to stop because you're having way too much fun."
Yeah.
But it's when we went down there, we had a soft landing. There was a big cushion, a big whatchamacallit at the bottom.
Gymnastic pads at the
There was
bottom.
a gymnastic mat. Thank you. There was a gymnastic mat at the bottom, but
They have
there
asphalt.
ain't gonna be one on the runway. You're
Yeah.
landing on concrete. So yeah.
Do you recall, did the fire department put out the engine, or they extinguished it with the fire control?
Yeah, the fire control. It was
So that-
out
so that
before
would- that
I
would
saw
probably-
any fire
yeah.
truck. Yeah.
Yeah, so that may have weighed on his decision, since he didn't have any external confirmation to just get everybody off and away from
Right,
the airplane.
right,
So
yeah.
that's why I won't criticize it.
Anyway,
So,
so it'll be interesting.
yeah, and a single bird strike, Susan, it can do it. But as I always say, tie goes to the airplane. The airplane will fly again, but that bird will not. And it depends on the size of the bird. And typically, if we had a cross section of an engine here, you've got a rotating bunch of blades, and then you've got a static bunch of blades that divert the air, and then you got a rotating bunch, and you got 14 sections of those sometimes, right, in a modern engine, right?
Yeah.
And so what happens is the bird itself, if you just shot the bird through and it didn't get bound up in there, it wouldn't do any damage. But what it does, if it's really big, when it goes past the first spinning section, it may get kind of compressed and break one of the blades, and that's what happens. It's usually the blade that it breaks that does the damage, if it's going to cause that kind of damage in an engine. It's not the bird just going through there, because the bird, and as we've joked about, immediately if you take one, because you smell burnt feathers over the air conditioning within seconds.
Yeah, 3 seconds. You count to 3, and then you take a big deep breath, and you go, "Oh, Peking duck."
Yeah.
Darn, we didn't. We think, did we see him go by?
Yeah.
See him flash and go, "Did you miss him?" And you count to 3 and go, "No, we hit him." Oh,
Yeah.
shoot.
So that winds us up for another edition here. And Laura, thanks a lot for coming and bearing your soul. It's really, I think it's the most therapeutic thing you can do, other than get on the airplane, is to tell other people about it. And I joke with people, the only price to coming is you got to keep passing it forward, or paying it forward.
Yeah.
So,
No, and I would say to anybody watching who's like on the fence, I honestly did 4 sessions with Ron, and I feel like a different person. So I would recommend him to anyone, and I will for the rest of my life. But it was definitely so helpful working with you.
and we're going to have you come back to the class sometime down there to share your smiling face and stuff. So anyway.
Oh yeah,
All right.
I'll be
So
there.
And
Yeah.
no dogs were harmed during the production of this video. Is that correct, Laura?
Exactly.
You want
We had
to
that
get that out there.
And no,
We had that all
none of
planned.
her friends either. None of her friends, and nothing was
Yeah.
stolen apparently.
Yeah.
So
We had that all planned. It was just to advertise the flight harmonizer, because that's the same effect it has. It hides the little doggies in the background of your brain here. So anyway, so thanks,
Exactly.
Eric. Thanks, Diane. Thanks again, Laura. And I hope you guys have a great evening. And for all of us in Phoenix, stay in and stay dry, man. It's been a heck of a day out there. Did you get any water where you live, Laura?
Oh yeah, I love it.
Yeah.
I love
Yeah.
it.
Yeah, we do. We celebrate the rain like everybody celebrates sunshine everywhere else. So
I
anyway,
know.
okay. Good night, you guys. Thanks a lot, and we'll see you next week. Bye-bye.
Yep.
Bye.
Keep smiling.